Are we live?
Yeah, we're good.
Welcome to Creature Kind Live Daily News. For those of you that don't know, my name is Ethan. Today we're going over a wide variety of different current animal topics around the world, and we're streaming on both Rumble, Kick, and YouTube. We have a very perky picture of a polar bear in the fall, probably sometime in late October, over in western Hudson Bay, adjacent to Churchill, Manitoba, Canada. So hopefully this animal will or it did gain some more weight later in the fall as well as in the winter. Don't eat very much until spring. So pushing like March. But heading over to another part of the world from wildlife.org or the Wildlife Society. Deadly bear attacks surge in Japan. So apparently this massive conflict is not over. Not that bear attacks didn't occur before this major incident or all these different incidents occurring in different parts of Japan, the northern island of Hokkaido, as well as the main island of Honshu. There are no bears in Okinawa. But here we have an Asiatic black bear, which is the species of black bear which exists in different parts of East Asia. You can find them even in different areas of Thailand, as well as Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos.
Wait. Are you saying no bear has studied Miyagi-Do?
They definitely became influenced by maybe the macaques in the region, macaque monkeys. But besides that, this animal is omnivorous, mostly feeds on different species of berries, leafy plants, until apparently recently with the major attacks and consumption of people over in Japan. So at least Japanese Asiatic black bears are much more carnivorous. So, besides that, they tend to eat a wide variety of different species of insects and occasionally the sika deer, which are native to Japan. These animals reach somewhere around 400 pounds or a little over 180 kilograms. And they are completely distinct species of black bear from the American black bear. Bears in Japan are a conservation success story that might be a little too successful. It's not that it's too successful, it's that there have been certain areas of land that have been massively it's wasn't just the deforestation, it was the replant or it was the plantations that were situated in areas of simply too dense of forest. And so now nothing can really grow underneath except the occasional cicada nymphs that the bears are able to feed on. But besides that, in some areas, it's become much harder for bears to obtain a meal.
What's a nymph?
Basically, when they're emerging from the ground in their adult stage,
What is?
a
Oh, a
cicada
cicada
insect.
nymph. Oh, okay. I did.
Last year saw a huge surge in bear attacks on people, killing 13 and injuring more than 100. Yeah, they were consumed. Wildlife biologists say a combination of factors are to blame, including more bears, less food for them, and paradoxically fewer people. Fewer people?
What?
What? We're talking about Japan here. I mean, it's not as bad as gosh, what was it? Sumatra or no, some other island, Indonesia, where it's like the most congested place on earth. There's like 150 million people on an area like the size of England. But that was odd. Japan is home to two species of bears, one of which is the Asiatic black bear, Ursus thibetanis, which populates three regions, including Japan's main island, Hokkaido, a mountainous island, northern Japan, is also home to the Ussuri brown bear, Ursus arctos leuciotis. I mean, occasionally it's very possible you might have Asiatic black bears swim to Hokkaido, but they don't really inhabit the island. It's just the Asiatic brown bears. And occasionally you might have it where the Asiatic brown bears over on Hokkaido will swim to adjacent islands, but then head right back to um, main island of Hokkaido, which is where they get most of their salmon from, as well as normal vegetation. By the 1980s, overharvesting had led Asiatic black bear populations to plummet, and some areas had lost the species entirely. But the bears began to rebound after conservation plans limited hunting. By November of last year, 2025, had seen 235 bear attacks and more than 20,000 reported sightings across the country. Whoa. But I'm not too familiar when the Asiatic black bear became extremely rare in Japan, but that seems to be a bit too recent for the overall, like, this major increase in population, considering there are somewhere around 44,000 Asiatic black bears in Honshu, which is immense. Let's see. So one reason this human bear conflict has increased is because the distribution of bears expanded in the last 20 years. Um, in this case, it's really due to destruction and misuse of habitat. Yeah, you could say, coming to contact with people, but I guess in areas where there's much less for them to eat. So it's going to make them a bit more irritated. Said Masahiro Oshinishai, a TWS member and principal research scientist at Wildlife Management Office in Japan. But the reasons for the uptick in attacks are complex, with overlapping forces pushing hungrier, bolder bears into the fringe of urban areas. As the number of bears has increased, Onishai said that many prefectures are unequipped to deal with them, leaving people and bears at risk. Yeah, well, also you have it where really these people don't, or most of the people in Japan don't have the right to defend themselves against the bears. Sharing a common ancestor with American black bears, Asiatic black bears, also known as moon bears, are on average a little smaller than their North American counterparts. Yeah, in some cases, they can be half the size. Since like the record American black bears over in the United States, and I believe it was Virginia or maybe even Pennsylvania, the largest was somewhere around 760 to 800 pounds, or pushing somewhere between 350 to 380 kilograms. Massive animal, very fat. It was during the fall, so when he's eating tons of berries, maybe use some garbage to complement that. They have a crescent moon shaped cream marking on their chest, hence the nickname, and ears reminiscent of a certain famous mouse. I don't know what that famous mouse is. Oh, Nice Shy said that Asiatic black bears tend not to be aggressive. When we see the Asiatic black bear in the forest, they're shy, like American black bears. Depends on the American black bear. And apparently, a lot of these Asiatic black bears don't seem to be very shy. That seems to be a big myth. Like American black bears, they are also predominantly scavengers and rarely kill for food. No, it is not rare for many populations of American black bears to kill deer fawns. In fact, in many areas like Minnesota, Wisconsin, different parts of the Midwest, like Michigan, black bears are the worst predator for deer fawns. And even as you go into Canada, but also can occur in different areas of Utah as well as Colorado. It tends to be blamed on coyotes, and Asiatic black bears have been observed in different parts of mainland Asia, taking out different fawns of the different species of deer, such as red deer, sika deer. Um, who else? I believe roe deer in different areas. But in Japan, black bears have recently been moving in unexpected ways in search of food. Because Japan is a temperate climate with strong seasonality, these bears typically hibernate each winter, and before they hibernate, they eat anything they can get their paws on, relying heavily on acorns and beech nuts in the fall.
It's hard for me to relate to acorns being in Japan.
Yeah, there are different species of acorn trees. Many people, well, I think it's that the certain variety that are viewed in, I guess, older cartoons or even books or animated movies, and that's really what people are familiar with, like with the squirrel or the chipmunk. But there are a wide variety. But in 2025, there was a mass failure in acorn and beech nut production. So bears, including mothers and cubs, had to travel farther into unknown territories to find food. I don't believe that's why. This is almost like saying that acorns and um, a wide variety of other nuts would be affecting deer in different areas of North America, Europe, or Asia. This is only one part of the year. You have to look at it as a whole. And what's affecting them is different. prey sources, and specifically when it comes to insects. Now you could say maybe even with different species of small mammals as well, like especially rodents. Even American black bears can be notorious rodent killers or consumers. Probably the same thing for the Asiatic black bear, feeding on different species of chipmunks and squirrels in the region. What's another thing? But
I like how you
insects
just
being a
said, though, that the bears are rodent consumers.
yeah. So
It's just funny. They
yeah,
consume those rodents.
yeah, he would consume like Alvin, Simon, Theodore. But uh, what else? Oh, but the insects are a much larger percentage of their diet, and it's a similar trend with different black bear populations over in North America, especially the United States. Over in Canada, they tend to be larger consumers of deer. But when it comes to this, what's another thing? Fish on Honshu is not as big of a part of their it's not as large of, um, a role when it comes to their feeding behavior as compared to black bears in certain areas of North America or even the brown bears over in Hokkaido. But, that's the thing, it's not just the nuts. And there's also, like, berries that they're feeding on, which maybe they even have trouble, having access to some of these berries due to, probably certain habitat degradation as well. Sightings and camera trap data have caught females and cubs traveling into suburban areas. In the north, the government deployed the Japan Self Defense Forces to help local hunters move bear traps in residential areas. Yeah, I saw that. That was kind of funny. It's kind of even hard to tell that it was the military. Only licensed hunters were permitted to kill the bears. Yeah, and I think they had like 3 rounds in their rifle at most, and they have to use like a specific kind. It's pretty strict. And anyway, some scientists in Japan have okay, let's see. Yeah, some failed beech nut crop. You're going to have different years where different species of trees are just not going to produce like the different types of nuts as to certain other years, and it majorly has to do with different weather and temperature conditions, and it can even have an effect 2 to 3 years into the future. So, um, no, it's not the whole climate change bias issue or propaganda. Oh, Nice Shy doesn't think that climate change is part of the equation in Japan's spiking bear attacks. Oh, wow.
Well, that's a new one.
Though pointing, I guess it's not too surprising considering there's been a lot more recognition. It's just the lies have been pushed by like National Geographic Discovery, pointing to natural low years in beech nut and acorn production cycles. Beyond last year's dramatic decrease in acorns and beech nuts, there are other longer term factors at play. Japan is facing a human depopulation. What? Okay. Um,
Why would human depopulation affect the bears eating?
it's almost like a repetitive writing of other things, like other articles. Okay, what happened? Yeah, just mentioning the mauling. Okay. So wildlife management in Japan looks different than it does in the United States, and Onaishai has experience in both systems. Before his career in Japan, Onaishai lived in Texas for 15 years, where he earned his PhD and worked as a research scientist at the Caesar Kleberg Wildlife Research Institute. I don't know what this is. Now, Onaishai works at Wildlife Management Office, a private organization that is contracted by the Ministry of the Environment as well as the prefecture or state level to carry out wildlife research and management. He started studying the bears in 2022 using GPS collars and camera traps. Oh, here's one. I think it's an Asiatic black bear. Just caught in one of those tunnels.
Well, it took me a second because they have his face covered.
Okay, I think that's a rope. Yeah, it's a rope. I thought those were chains. So unlike the US, Japanese government employs few wildlife biologists. Yeah, it is a bit surprising that Japan does not really take an in-depth look into the just overall ecology of their different animals in in the country, like especially the Asiatic black bears.
What do you mean?
There's not a lot of research done on their overall behavior, and just same thing with the Asiatic brown bears. It's very strict for people outside of the country to come and research them themselves. I'm not even referring to just regular tourists coming to see them. Just overall, like scientists wanting to come in and just spend a week or two,
Wait,
observing
Japan
them.
doesn't let that happen?
Yeah, it's very, very hard to get in
Huh.
and have that, or just make a simple, documentary. So we do have very limited numbers of wildlife biologists in the federal and prefecture agencies, he said. Japan's Ministry of the Environment has manuals for bear management. But across the country, like from California to New York, can you apply the same bear management plan? Probably not. The guidance is flexible. Yeah. Onaishai said, so that prefectures can customize their own management strategies, but some of the regions are left unprepared with no existing strategies because they didn't have bears before. Well, they did, just not until recently. Like, they went extinct and then they came back. Now, with black bear's recent range expansion, some areas are dealing with high levels of human wildlife conflict. It's just, coming back to their old home range. So it's not just the bears who have been changing their behavior. I wonder what animals are they're referring to now. Maybe the Sika deer, but I don't think they've changed too much. Humans too are responding. What? In part of Hokkaido's biggest city, Sapporo, which hosted the 1972 Winter Olympics, Oh Naishai said that it's common to see people using bear bells. He said some people are so scared of bears they don't walk around at night in some parts of the city. Japan also used to have wolves, and unfortunately, they went extinct in the late 1800s. In October 2025, a bear was trapped and removed from the parking lot of a bank building in the downtown area of a city on the northern side of Japan's main island.
It
Oh,
just wanted money to buy a chocho bar.
say a chocho bar?
Is that what they were called? In that movie,
Talking about open season?
yeah,
The woohoo
the
bar?
Woohoo Bar. Okay.
Onaishai thinks that managers need to implement or more preventive and less reactive approaches. Oh, and just to remind everybody, considering we mentioned those chocolate bars, do not leave like chocolate or throw chocolate out in any areas of North America, Europe, Asia, due to the fact that it is fatal to bears. Like they cannot. I mean, at least they'll get extremely sick, but it's really bad for them. Onaishai thinks that managers need to implement more preventive and less reactive approaches. Um, I'm going to also stick in a little bit of Northwestern South America because we have this short faced spectacled bear in the area. He also cannot consume chocolate. Where are we? Okay, so you like an opportunistic bear calling to play whack a mole. They're just trying to deal with problems as they come up. Rather, creating cities informed by science based conflict prevention methods like securing trash can stop attracting bears to residential areas. They're still going to smell it. They just can't get through the can. If it can smell a little, um, a little bit leftover of fast food in your vehicle, you can smell it in a trash can. So Nishai also thinks that instituting bear management zones around major urban areas will create buffer zones of targeted bear deterrence to keep bears away, but also maintain forested areas that can still act as conservation zones for the animals. In Japan, we can learn a lot from wildlife biologists from other countries, including the United States. He said, citing areas in the north and west where people coexist with large populations of bears. Um, I guess he's referring to different areas of like Montana, Idaho, Alaska. I think the number of people killed strongly impacted the Japanese people. You have to make a more systematic way to deal with it.
How many people were killed?
It's really not that hard. Well, 13, but I thought there were more. Anyway, let's travel to another part of the world. So, from Cron.com, one
This is the
Texas
Houston
bear
Chronicle.
may be changing the comeback story. The development Development could point to a lasting return to parts of the state. Well, they're doing this quite slowly. Let's see. Black bears aren't just passing through Texas. At least one may have decided to stay. So, what was this up here? Young black bear has been moving through East Texas, where wildlife officials believe it may have stayed through the winter. Oh, he seems to be of decent health. That is interesting. He's got a bit of a somewhat cinnamon brown sort of a color to him.
Well, we didn't have a cold winter. Well, they up in, Dallas?
I do not know. Um, a young male black bear that drew attention last year along the Neches River has resurfaced after the winter, and wildlife officials now believe he may have done something not documented in decades, remain in East Texas through the cold months. So this black bear wasn't adjacent to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The Neches River, I believe, is much further east, like in dense East Texas. Dallas-Fort Worth area is also technically not in the East Texas biome. It's more like adjacent to the Blackland Prairie sort of biome. So almost like north central Texas to an extent. Let's see. So the bear first spotted in Anderson County in 2025. Yeah, that's East Texas. Has been tracked by the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department since July. In recent weeks, he's been caught again on game cameras near Rusk. Whoa. And reported around deer feeders, signaling he never left the region. This is like south of Tyler.
Boy, was he holding his paw up and signaling?
Yeah, it sounds like that. Thanks to verified reports from the public, we believe this bear successfully overwintered along the Neches River corridor. If so, this would be the first documented black bear to overwinter in over 50 years. Texas Parks Wildlife Department announced Thursday. Interesting. I mean, what is not surprising is that it sounds like he's mostly feeding off of bird feeders. The problem, not bird feeders. Well, I mean, they can be too, but um, deer feeders. The problem is he's only getting really a bunch of carbohydrates from here and some sugars from mostly the corn that's being put in these deer feeders, which also isn't really even a lot of nutrition for the deer. It's just carbs. So the problem is, it's like, where is he getting, or the question is, where's he getting all of his insects from? Considering Argentinian fire ants can be a big hassle in different parts of the southeastern United States in general. But depending on where he is over in East Texas, if he's in a healthy forest area, then he'll probably have access to different species of berries, certain leafy plants that he would possibly feed on different areas of Arkansas, Louisiana, wherever this individual is from. At least where he is, he's a bit more adjacent to Louisiana than any other state.
I thought he
Louisiana,
walked over from North Carolina.
that would be a ways. And honestly, I mean, it could make somewhat sense because there's a lot of competition between bears in North Carolina considering the population. There's around 20 to 21,000 black bears over in North Carolina. Bit less towards Tennessee, but I mean, heading all the way over here, problem it's really hard to find mates. So let's see. Yeah, he's definitely a young one. That corridor, stretching roughly from Highway 79 to Highway 294, has become the Bears' home base, at least for now. Yeah, how large is this individual's territory? If he's having to trek quite a distance to find a sustainable amount of food each day, we could be looking at a black bear with possibly a home range of over, 50 square miles or pushing over, 80 square kilometers. Sightings have clustered across Anderson and Cherokee counties, with a possibility that he could wander into the northeastern parts of Houston County as the year goes on. And just remind everybody, Houston County is not where the city of Houston is, it's much further north. For decades, black bears were largely absent from Texas. I was actually surprised when it mentioned that this is only the first in 50 years. I thought it had been much longer since we've seen a black bear in East Texas, or at least a confident or confirmed individual that overwintered. And he came out of actually, I find that a bit hard to believe he was hibernating in general. It was a very mild winter. um, for East Texas. So let's see. Um, okay, having been nearly wiped out by the mid 1900s. Yeah, I would say pretty much wiped out. Even the Big Bend region, there were only a handful of individuals, and then they've been slowly um, increasing in population. Might be around 80 to 110 black bears over in like the Trans Pecos region of western Texas, even heading into like the hill country or like the Edwards Plateau. So adjacent to San Antonio, where okay, especially in West Texas, where a small but growing population is taking hold. Occasional appearances in East and South Texas. Yeah, that was a bit interesting. Like especially along the Rio Grande. Like there have been certain videos where there's like a fence along the border, and the black bear is trying to get across legally. So bad joke. Have typically been brief, with bears moving on after passing through. This one didn't. TPWD officials say the bear still appears wary of people, a good sign for both humans and the animal's long-term survival. This young black bear is growing fast and could hit full maturity by midsummer, the agency said. Based on its travels, it may be headed toward bear country in Louisiana, Arkansas, or Oklahoma to find a mate. There's a huge difference in the different types of habitat over in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and especially Louisiana. Now, you could say southwestern Arkansas and southeastern Oklahoma pretty much have the same type of ecosystem. As you head further north, it can be a bit different. Still, if you stay along the border between the two states, so like of eastern Oklahoma and western Arkansas, they can be very similar. But you head to Louisiana, it's mostly just swamp and certain pine forests. So, yeah, we don't know where this individual is headed. So let's see. So this black bear has been documented in multiple East Texas counties in recent months. He's definitely thin here. Or he could stick around longer. Wildlife officials are asking residents in Anderson, Cherokee, and nearby counties to report sightings to local biologists or game wardens. Killing, harassing, or harming a black bear is illegal under both federal and state law, with penalties that can reach $12,000 in possible jail time. Jeez, I just think that's absolutely nuts. Let's see. Signs of a broader comeback are already taking shape elsewhere in Texas. At the Independence Creek Preserve, researchers recently confirmed the birth of two cubs. I don't know where this place is, including one named Pancakes Jr. The Dutch would be proud, as so are we as Americans, to a collared female known as Pancakes. Hmm, interesting. So instead of the Aaronstein Bears, the Pancakes Bears.
How did they name a bear pancakes? Not even pancake, pancakes.
Maybe they saw it munching on pancakes,
I guess that's
from
true.
like garbage can or whatever, or somebody was eating pancakes at home, IHOP, I don't know.
That's what I was actually thinking. Did it stop by IHOP?
Yeah, and just thought, why don't we just name it something simple and, cute, welcoming, pancakes. The same bear has now raised at least 6 cubs in the area, evidence that breeding populations are taking hold in parts of the state.
So pancakes junior, syrup, butter, whipped cream.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Okay. Well, that was interesting to see. It's good to see. Um, let's head over to another part of the world. So, from Washington's recorded level. Yeah, there's definitely been an increase in wolves over in the Pacific Northwest and different parts of Idaho. So, some collared individual. I wonder this is over in Washington State, maybe some part of the North Cascades Mountains of like North Cascades National Park, probably further south. They
What's with
are,
the tail between its legs?
it's usually like a sort of submission sort of a look. It does seem quite startled. Yeah, it's tagged too. Washington's gray wolf population is at its highest count since the state began monitoring in 2008. State and tribal officials counted a minimum of 270 wolves and 49 packs, including 23 breeding pairs at the end of 2025, according to a new report from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife.
Well, some of those packs can't be very large. 49 packs and only 270 wolves.
Yeah, it definitely varies. I mean, I'm wondering if they're even including like certain pairs and just calling it a pack. Well, it says including 23 breeding pairs, probably. Um, what was I thinking of? Yeah, definitely adjacent Idaho has somewhere around 6 to 8,000 wolves, but they have been increasing population for several more decades. The numbers are estimates from last winter's surveying and include lone wolves. Wow. Okay, so there aren't even full packs in here. Some are just lone wolves. Probably like they just left their family and want to start a new one. See, so it marks a 17.4% increase from 2024. Oh, that's good to see. When the tally was 230 wolves and 43 packs. That year marked the first decline since counting began. Whoa, it did? In 2023, the state recorded 254 wolves and 42 packs. Jeez, that's a fall. The growth is pretty consistent in what we've seen in our recolonizing population throughout recovery, said Trent Rosen, a wolf biologist for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. I wonder what happened is that a bunch of wolves got into conflict with each other because it doesn't sound like, now we don't know for sure if there were certain euthanizations from either the government or maybe just people in more rural areas because they were hunting livestock. But I don't believe wolf predation of livestock is anywhere as big in Washington as it is to down in California or compared to California. The state groups wolves into three recovery regions: Eastern Washington, the North Cascades, and the Southern Cascades and Northwest Coast. I wonder if that's specifically four areas. So the increase was fueled in part by six new or reestablished packs. In Northeast Washington, three packs were reestablished. Officials recorded two new packs in the North Cascades and one new pack on the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation.
Wait. Is reestablished means where we created the pack?
I wonder. I mean, possibly. We might have intervened by introducing certain pups, but I'm not sure if it was a state law or a federal law that kind of halted a major part of that, which is nuts. Basically, I'm against um,
Wait, creating the packs or not creating the packs?
not creating the packs. Let's see. Oh, it could have been simply that maybe a certain pack decreased to one or two individuals. Maybe there were like three, and then all of a sudden there was just this boom. But that sounds like a complete degradation. It might have been there was just that one maybe male left. There were no known wolf packs in the Southern Cascades and Northwest Coast region by the end of 2025, according to the report. Regaining lost footing is essential, but these numbers just don't mean wolves are recovered, said Emmerich Weiss, a senior wolf advocate at the Center for Biological Diversity. The Southern Cascades and North Coast boast some of the best wolf habitat in the state, but still have no wolf packs or breeding pairs. Trying to think of what's referring to by the North Coast. That is interesting, the Southern Cascades, because you would assume that would be the Northern Cascades, but possibly certain areas of forest just aren't as abundant. Um, I guess not as healthy over in the just northern areas adjacent to British Columbia, as opposed to areas further south, which I still find odd. Let's see. I still have no wolf packs or breeding pairs. To get there from their current habitat, wolves would have to cross I-90. That's a busy highway. Or the Columbia Basin, which they can and they have, said Gabriel Spence, wolf biologist for Fish and Wildlife. We have had high mortality, human caused mortality on wolves in the South Cascades. That mortality can really slow any population growth. At least 28 wolves died last year, according to the report. Ouch. Six were killed due to livestock conflict. Of those, four were lethally removed by the state. 12 wolves were legally hunted by tribal members on the Colville Reservation. That's interesting considering the size of the population. You would think you would want it higher, like at least what you see in Idaho. Three wolves died due to alleged poaching, with one case referred to a prosecuting office and the other two under active investigation. Killing a wolf without authorization can carry penalties of up to a year in jail or a $5,000 fine under state law. Sheesh. One wolf that died during a Department of Fish and Wildlife capture operation was determined to have had a congenital heart defect. Two died of natural causes and one died of unknown causes, the report states. Under state law, wolves are classified as endangered throughout the state. That won't change until at least four successful breeding pairs inhabit western Washington. Wait a second. So, as long as there's only four breeding pairs, and then they're no longer classified as what, protected or just endangered? Hmm. Where none were found, and other pairs continue to survive in the two additional recovery regions of the state. For ranchers, an increasing number of wolves means more risk for their livestock. Because the wolves are classified as endangered under state law, ranchers are not allowed to kill them. So I'm guessing it's one of those instances where you have to call in the government to get rid of them. I guess somewhat what they're doing in California, but it sounds like the ranchers can euthanize them too. Anyway, the state compensates ranchers when a wolf kills their livestock, but even then, it's not enough. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Usually, the thing's a scam. The compensation, said Chelsea Hanai, executive vice president of the Washington Cattlemen's Association. Attacks on livestock in 2025 decreased by 50% from the year before. Whoa. Well, that's good to hear. According to the report, I wonder if there was like a massive boom in the mule deer and elk population. Five of the 49 packs last year were involved in at least one confirmed or probable livestock injury or mortality. I will say moose are not very common in Washington. I believe there's only somewhere around 300 maybe. But ranchers don't always report depredations when or depredations when they happen, said Hanai, calling the report number skewed. Ranchers are facing a real crisis. It's not just wait a second. You just said it decreased. The crisis is not really occurring. It's not just the loss of a cow. Wolves that inhabit ranches stress cattle to the point where they are not able to breed or successfully carry a calf. Well, we've been doing it for thousands of years. I think we're going to be okay. We need more action, or the cows are going to be okay. They've coexisted with wolves since the Ice Age. We need more action and more ability to take matters into our own hands. It's interesting. We went from, way back in certain other live streams with different articles, kind of um, imitating different environmentalists and what they were saying about the habitat and what people were doing. And now it's about what was happening to the stress, mental health of the cow and what the wolves are doing, though they have been coexisting since the Pleistocene. Jeez. Range riders would be a solution, referring to those contracted by the state to monitor land and report wolf activity to ranchers, but there's simply not enough of them. This is kind of funny. Okay, let's head over to another part of the world. From news.mongabay.com, new study splits giraffe experts on future wild captures for zoos. Yeah, I find it weird that occurs still for zoos and giraffes. I thought maybe they were just bred in areas like the United States, Europe, Canada, maybe even Australia. Um,
Are you saying
but
that you thought they were bred specifically for the zoos?
yeah, which almost all of these zoos, they don't give enough space specifically for the giraffes. Like put them in a very large area, like 40 acres or more. Hybridization of captive giraffes in North American zoos may. Okay, let's keep going. So, in the vast savanna grasslands of sub Saharan Africa, hold on, let's cut to the chase. What's going on here? So, A new study argues that excessive hybridization of captive giraffes in North American zoos diminishes their conservation value. Oh, is that where they're like mixing the species together? And well, you can even say subspecies is going to have an effect, and even more the species. The researchers analyzed the genetics of 52 such giraffes and then compared their genes to 63 wild giraffes in Africa. The results found that most giraffes in North America were of mixed ancestry, primarily between northern and reticulated giraffes. Only a few giraffes retained their species' unmixed genetics. So, let's see. So there are four different species of giraffes. There is the northern giraffe that you would find in, or you do find different areas of Nigeria, Central African Republic, believe Burkina Faso, and then you have the Maasai giraffe over in different parts of Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda. The reticulated giraffe, which is specifically over in Kenya and Somalia, and then the southern giraffe, which you find in different areas of Angola, Botswana, Mozambique, South Africa, basically southern sub-Saharan Africa. And then most of these species, most of the four species, have two to three different subspecies, all of which have different phylogeny and as well as different overall physiological structure. This is interesting. This has actually happened with a wide variety of different species of animals over in captive settings. Their DNA wasn't looked at beforehand, which is interesting. Um, I mean, it almost doesn't make any sense. And that's how you have all these essential hybrids of many different types of animals. So they're not really any good for conservation. I mean, sure, if there was nothing left of these species in the wild, you could say they would have some value, but in this case, they really don't. They only put the species in more danger. Alfred L. Roca, professor at the Animal Sciences Laboratory at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and lead author of the study, said decades of interbreeding of giraffes in North American zoos has eroded their value as an insurance population. That's interesting. The study shows that offspring of genetically distant giraffes or hybrids suffered reduced fitness due to the breakdown of locally adapted genes. Kind of wondering if there's also some inbreeding going on too. We found essentially no unmixed reticulated giraffes remaining. So this is a specific species. It's that species of giraffe over in Kenya and southern Somalia. They only inhabit that specific southern area of Somalia. It's like I think many people think of Somalia as just being nothing but like a wasteland or just a large desert, and a lot of it is. But there are still different areas where animals would historically inhabit and do currently. Roca's study argues that repeated hybridization of captive giraffes make them unsuitable for conservation purposes. Preserving species integrity is crucial to future breeding programs of giraffes in human care. Roca told Mongabe Africa in an email. The study recommends collaborating with willing African governments, eh, conservation organizations, and regional wildlife authorities to source wild giraffes for captivity, while emphasizing that this must be done according to uh, multilateral principles like the Convention on Biological Diversity and Access and Benefit Sharing. I've not heard of that. To ensure equitable conservation outcomes. In addition to this, the study highlights zoos as vital conservation players where keepers can efficiently collect semen and carry out embryo transfers. It suggests that hybrid animals could be used as surrogates to carry embryos from different wild populations. Okay, so yeah, basically here you have the four different species of giraffe.
I thought you said there were 3.
No, there are four. There's three. I believe one species has only two subspecies, and that might be the northern giraffe, and the other three species have three subspecies. So in August, it, there was all this. mentioned about August 2025, and all of a sudden the conclusion to there being four distinct giraffe species, but we've known this for a while. When assumed to be a single species, giraffes were classified as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Between 1985 and 2015, the overall population of wild giraffes declined by 36 to 40% to an estimated 97,500. Yeah, it sounds about right, according to the IUCN, but the population is starting to recover. More than 140,000 giraffes now wander Africa. According to latest data compiled by Namibia based nonprofit Giraffe Conservation Foundation. Almost said Jurassic. So, um, technically, the estimate in recent years was somewhere between, like, I think 95,000 to 115,000 giraffes, but saying 140,000. So that's good to hear. The question is, where are these extra, um, well, in this case, 40,000 occurring? The data reveal growth in three of the four distinct giraffe species: southern, northern, and reticulated, whereas the Maasai giraffe has remained stable since 2020. Basically, it hasn't moved. That's still not too specific. I mean, these are over many fragmented populations of giraffes, so still a big question. While Roca's study suggests capturing genetically pure giraffes from the wild for conservation in zoos, some experts believe this would be detrimental to conservation goals. Stephanie Finessi, the GCF executive director who has studied giraffes for more than 20 years, said that even though zoos play an important role in giraffe conservation, we don't need to rely on international breeding programs to save the giraffe just yet. I think we just don't need to really in general, unless we plan to, like, make some sort of, I don't know, like, type of African, North American animal game reserves, but you don't really have many trees in the United States that could sustain giraffes. Let's see, all four giraffe species should be and still can be saved in Africa by African people who share their living space with giraffes. I'm going to say this because here's the thing: you have had a lot of scientists from Europe that put a lot of dedication into the overall just ecology, feeding behavior, the classification of the giraffe itself. So I am going to defend those scientists. Finessi said translocations to historical habitats in Africa are powerful conservation interventions, and that wild captures for captive breeding are completely against conservation goals. According to her, detailed habitat assessments, security, and transportation, alongside a clear understanding as to which species or subspecies of giraffes should be moved to which particular area to prevent further hybridization, is crucial for future translocations in Africa. Um, I don't think it's necessarily maybe the hybridization, considering it seems to be quite rare. It's just simply moving different giraffes to help with just overall, genetic variety in, like, the same subspecies or species population. Vanessa described a project she carried out in collaboration with the Kenya Wildlife Service. That country is home to the northern reticulated and Maasai giraffes, which have historically overlapping territories. For the project, the researchers led by Finessi collected more than 330 DNA samples of all three species and found no hybridization. That's good to hear, despite the animals historically sharing overlapping habitats. Giraffes hybridize in captivity. They do not interbreed in the wild. They don't interhybridize. That's what it's trying to say. She said, further emphasizing that wild capture may not be the solution to hybridization of giraffes elsewhere. It seems like a healthy mother and her calf. Yeah, they're northern. Oh, yeah, this is one of those northern giraffes over in Niger. Southern Niger is more of a savanna landscape compared to the rest of it, which is basically Sahara Desert. And you can find different species of late Cretaceous dinosaur in the area. Fred Berkovich, a comparative wildlife biologist and conservation scientist at the N.A. Innes Dag Foundation in Ontario, Canada, said the study's proposition to relocate giraffes from African nations to North American zoos is completely at odds with conservation goals, calling it unethical and immoral. Okay, Berkovich, who has studied giraffes for more than 2 decades, said taking giraffes from the wild depletes the population size of threatened species in their natural habitats in order to strive for the goal of genetic purity in captive populations. All of the giraffes in North American zoos are threatened with extinction. I guess it's saying when it comes to the pure giraffes. He said, adding that genetic distinctness should not be the top priority if saving giraffes is the ultimate goal.
Wait a minute.
What?
A pure giraffe opposed to a giraffe mixed with an Asiatic bear?
Yeah, that would be concerning. That's also not possible. But yeah, that would be very weird. AI is very good at creating those. Let's see, what is it? Actually, it wasn't just that. It was people photoshopping giant fat giraffes, like with a really short neck, and um, there'd be these videos saying, "Here, click here, a giraffe you've never seen before." I'm like, yeah. I got concerned. I'm like, wait a second. I don't think it's really that possible for a giraffe to be this obese. Previous studies echo this argument, suggesting that reticulated giraffes evolved as a consequence of interbreeding between Maasai and Nubian or northern giraffes, a subspecies of northern giraffes. Hmm. It's almost like the steppe mammoth and the woolly mammoth, and they created the Columbian mammoth. Berkovich said the taxonomic revision of giraffes into four species and the conservation of giraffes in North American zoos don't seem to correlate, emphasizing that conservation of giraffes should take place in Africa in their natural habitats. He gave the example of Maasai giraffes split into two subspecies separated by the Great Rift Valley in East Africa. If so, then shouldn't the Maasai giraffe in captivity be divided based on whether they are from the West or East Rift Valley in order to maintain genetic purity? Berkovich said, adding that even if 1/3 of giraffes in North American zoos are hybrids, it shouldn't be a problem for zoos and giraffe conservation. Oh, okay. That's actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was expecting like 80 to 90% of giraffes in the United States, Canada were hybrids. This is saying, okay, 1/3. That's a lot better. That's kind of nice to hear. I was really concerned. Seems like the dry season. Jeez, really bad dry season. All those acacias are completely bare except for this one, somewhat.
Oh, there's a green one in the background.
Oh, yeah. Way off. They might make their way over. I think that's a calf. So the only populations of giraffes that are not threatened with extinction live in southern Africa. Well, that's because there is a larger population of giraffes over in southern Africa. So Botswana, Namibia, South Africa. I wouldn't completely say that they're least concern, and none of them are found in zoos. In fact, I really don't like using the term least concern for almost any animal. Then something like the raccoon pops up and it's like, well, or like certain species of rats, especially, the brown rat over from India and China. I think also the black rat too. And they've become invasive nearly everywhere but Antarctica. So, yeah, those animals, it's like, okay, yeah, that is. Well, the problem is, even though it's supposed to be by population, but I am concerned about them just the opposite way. So, um, yeah, giraffes are one of those things. I think you're still like always just watching out for them. So, emphasizing that the zoo population in North America rather acts as animal ambassadors to, well, that's kind of how I've viewed it, to educate the public about the plight of their cousins in Africa. No, I just always viewed them as something fascinating to look at and watch. Because there is a difference between just staring at an animal and then moving on and then actually observing it. Berkovich also said the sample size of the zoo of the zoo study was too small in comparison with the total population of captive giraffes in North America. And as such, the recommendations of the study failed to address conservation concerns. Yeah, I mean, that did seem like a small amount. I almost thought it was a bit of a joke. Berkovich, I already said that. In October 2025, the US based Association of Zoos and, and Aquariums published the Giraffe Care Manual. Uh, okay, so how to, I guess this is going to have something like engine fuel oil for your reticulated giraffe. Well, not engine fuel oil, more of like, apple cider vinegar for the giraffe. Okay, don't give that animal any of that. Setting forth guidelines on nutrition, habitat, veterinary care, and reproduction. But the manual doesn't mention any differentiated treatment for each species. I mean, like, you should put it on a large plot of land. All giraffes found in North American zoos should get the same care. Well, I think if one's disabled, it's going to need a different type of care. You need to make it one of those extra boots that are given to like elephants and other large animals that like are missing maybe certain limbs. All giraffes found in North American Manga Bay, Africa reached out for comment to several of the North American zoos and institutions that provided DNA samples for the study, but none had responded by the time this article was published. Hmm. Also seems like the dry season here. Trees seem full of vegetation. Oh, that's it. Is there something else? No. Okay. Well, oh, right. Him. He's like, this is why you need to always go back to Canada, Western Hudson Bay, Churchill. So, thanks for joining. It's good to hear with, well, not so much the bear attacks. I say this was kind of funny. So, we're streaming on both Rumble, YouTube, and Kick. And from Prehistoric to Present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guy Live Daily News. Happy International Ice Age Month. And remember that nothing is better than all animals all the time.